Okay, welcome everyone to this week's compiler architecture meeting. It's been a couple of months since we've last had one, a bit of a slow summer, but we want to get things back on track. Today there's a couple of topics I would like to discuss. The first is some changes that I'd like to propose for the focus of these meetings going forward, and the second is a project that one of the interns at IBM has been working on for the past couple of months to consume LLVMIR in OMR. So we'll be talking through what needs to happen in order to make that contribution to OMR. But to begin with, I'd like to talk about the focus of this meeting going forward. So I'd like to change the focus. I'd like to broaden the focus to be beyond just the compiler architecture. There are things that we talk about in this meeting that have that reach beyond just the compiler into other aspects of OMR. So I think I'd like to change the focus of this to really be an overall OMR architecture call and try to get participants from other components within the OMR package to bring up topics and feel free to discuss them in sort of a regular forum if they wish. So it's a relatively small change. I don't think I'm going to be creating different issues and like different schedules and all that. I think it's really just going to be from this point forward, I'll invite non-compiler topics as well, but OMR focused to be discussed here, and hopefully we'll have a more complete picture of everything that's going on. So so that's how it's going to be going forward. Okay, so that said, Nazim, I'll turn it over to you to talk about your issue.
Okay. So what I want to talk about and propose today is contributing the LLJB project into OMR. And what LLJB basically is, as Daryl mentioned, is a way for consuming LLVM intermediate representation and easily being able to use the OMR compiler to jet compile. And I given a talk on this recently, and there is a link to that talk on YouTube that is posted in the issue 4292 that I opened proposing this idea. So there are a few things that I think we need to discuss. Firstly, whether there are any concerns about having such a project in OMR, and then we have to discuss issues about whether there is any like what was the more appropriate directory structure of such a project living within OMR. Whether we can either have it as a top level directory of its own, or perhaps a sub project of JetBuilder. In that way, we can look at LLJB as an easy way to use JetBuilder. So JetBuilder already simplifies using the OMR compiler, and LLJB would simplify it even further for languages that generate LLVMIR. So it could be looked at as that way. And it introduces a number of build dependencies, build time dependencies on OMR project. But then what I'm thinking of is to have LLJB as an optional tool that is built if you specify it. It doesn't have to be built with everything. So any of the dependencies that are going to be introduced as a result of this will also be optional. So it will not require changing the environment in any of the build machines that we have currently. So far, are there any concerns or comments from anyone present right now?
think that's a no.
Don't think so.
Okay. So the reason I feel OMR is going to be a very useful addition is that there are so many different languages that generate LLVM IR, and if they have a way to easily try out using OMR compiler for their dynamic compilations, I think they will have it'll be a really easy way to assess whether it's beneficial to switch to using OMR compiler as for their dynamic compilations, and that's why I think having this project in OMR is going to be very useful.
So Nazim, how do you how will one build LLJB? So is this going to produce a like its own shared object? And are you adding a new target or a build configuration to OMR so that you can build it?
It's going to be its own library.
Okay. Yeah.
That is going to be there will be a new CMake configuration option that will be added. That will be used to enable or disable that tool.
Okay. Okay, and then presumably there are tests that will live.
There are tests.
TPE that will also that can also get invoked on the shared object that gets built. Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of dependencies do we have?
So the dependencies are we use Clang 8.0 because right now all of our IR is generated from C++, and we use Clang 8.0 as the front end compiler for generating the IR, and then you can obviously add different like other compiler front ends as well to generate LLVM IR, but right now we're going to use that. And then we also use the LLVM developer libraries, and that requires LLVM 8.0. Yeah, these are the new requirements. We already do have a library dependency for the OMR checker in Travis CI builds, I believe, where we use LLVM 3.5 or 6, something like that. So for Travis CI, I think it will be possible to even upgrade our OMR checker tool so that we can actually use LLVM 8.0 for both LLJB as well as OMR checker.
So is this a build configuration? Like, is this a machine installation, or is it something we clone as part of the build process for OMR?
No, it's just an installation.
Okay.
Does any part of LLVM need to be built, or
No.
are you just using and do you need header files or something from it?
Yeah. So when you install the LLVM developer libraries, you get the header files under and we find the paths to these header files in their configuration. So that's not something you'll have to worry about as long as you have LLVM developer libraries installed.
Okay.
Do you envision building LLJB on all OMR builds, like PR builds, or?
Sorry, I did not catch the last part.
Would this be something would LLJB be something we build on pull request builds?
We could, but then that will require changing the environment so that the pull request build machines actually have what we build dependencies. What I envisioned was having it off by default and only turned on for certain CI builds. So, for example, maybe the Travis CI build.
Okay, I see. Thanks.
But some CI builds, though, because if somebody does make a contribution to this, we want to be able to test it, right? As part of the commit process.
Yeah, so that'll be. I think that's something that that will be very useful. But then the reason I haven't really like I'm not saying that we should be enabling it all the time. Is because I'm just concerned about any concerns that are coming from having to change the build environment of the PR machines. So the thing is, if we do want to have it there, then it'll be a matter of keeping it enabled by default for the PR machines. The PR build machines, and then we'll have to ensure that we have the necessary LLVM installation for building LLJB.
I'm leaning towards not having it on our PR build machines and only doing Travis.
In fact, if you go to the LLJB project right now, I already do have a Travis CI, Travis.yml file with the configuration necessary to build it for Linux and Mac OS.
Yeah. I guess if this ever expands beyond just x86, we have to find another means.
Cross that bridge once we get there.
Yeah.
I don't suspect anyone hacking on non-x86 platforms to begin with, at least.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's talk about where this where you think it should land in the code base. You listed a couple of options here.
Yes, and I'm leaning towards having LLJB in a subdirectory of JIT-Builder. Does anyone have any other idea for
Lots of thinking here.
Can you provide some justification for you leaning towards that option?
Like I mentioned earlier, I want to see LLJB as a tool that you can that provides an easier interface to JIT-Builder itself for languages that generate LLVM IR. Because LLVM IR is because LLJB is using JIT-Builder for everything, felt perhaps it'll be more appropriate to view it as a sub-project of JIT-Builder. There really isn't more argument than that, and I don't know if it's really necessary to have another subdirectory in the top-level OMR directory structure for LLJB project, because we have another way to consume the OMR compiler other than JIT-Builder at the top level.
Is the top level API to LLJB more than just the compile this LLVM function kind of interface? Was there more to it than that?
No, it just load this module and compile it. That's about it.
That sounds to me more like it just becomes part of JIT-Builder. So it happens to be implemented using JIT-Builder.
Yeah.
Which would argue in favor of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm supporting his conclusion. I mean, in principle, it's just a different kind of method builder, right? That takes an option. Kind of like Func Builder has a different API for how Func Builder uses Method Builder. This is just another API built on top of Method Builder that happens to take an LLVM function as its input to drive the Method Builder. So from that standpoint, it's kind of just an extension of the JIT-Builder API to allow people to inject LLVM IR at the source, which seems like a reasonable starting point for me.
Yeah. So does this mean I would participate in the API generation?
Principle. But if it's just one function, then presumably we just need to add one extra type to the API description to be an LLVM function. And then it just becomes another compile LLVM. Maybe just call it compile LLVM. No, not compile LLVM. Compile LLVMIR or something.
Right.
Whatever. So that seems relatively simple to introduce. Although it only works on one platform right now. It would be the first service that's in that category.
And then your tests would live under FE test?
No,
FE
they will.
JIT builder?
I would expect them to live under LLJB.
Okay, that's a bit of a.
That's not. Yeah, that's a departure from what you usually do.
Yeah, that sticks out.
Okay.
I'd rather make them part. If we're going to make LLJB part of JIT Builder, then we should make the tests part of the JIT Builder tests.
Yes.
Okay, that can also be done. I see no problem with that.
And then your Mandelbrot example can be made a sample.
Yeah.
Split up samples, I guess.
JIT Builder sample.
Right. Just to show people how it's done.
Yeah. Okay. So for timeline, I'm expecting, I'm hoping that I can, I'm hoping to open the PR to contribute to LLJB to OMR by end of this year. And in the meantime, there is going to be a whole bunch of work that is going to happen on LLJB, adding the different capabilities that I discussed in the talk a couple of weeks ago. So by then, LLJB is going to be a more capable tool, and it will require less pull requests that are LLJB specific. It'll be not as frequent as the changes that will go in right now. Which is why we don't have to worry about too many LLJB specific pull requests opening right now. Sorry?
If this is an optional, like you don't have to build it against LLVM, does that introduce any complexities into the API management for it?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Sorry, I'm just wondering if including this LLVM dependency as an optional dependency, then if LLJB is just part of the JIT Builder API, then that needs to be able to deal with LLVM being there or not. I was asking Leo, just because he's sitting beside me,
okay.
if he thought that introduced any additional complexities into the API management, because we asked that question earlier, I guess. And in principle, we could forward declare the LLVM function type, so that doesn't need to necessarily.
I don't believe it would, because you can specify which which API description files to use to generate an API binding.
Yep.
So if you just have a separate file for specifying this API,
I see. Based on the base JIT Builder API, then you could either specify that one or that one, and CMake can configure which one gets used.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Or you can, I believe it's also possible to specify multiple files.
Okay.
Right. Optionally included or not.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Right.
In your repo right now, is there anything other than the source code and the test cases? Are there tools or documentation or anything else you have in there that would have to find a home somewhere in OMR? Or do you have any sort of special build requirements other than the dependency on LLVM?
No. And as for documentation, it's just a README file right now, and I am writing up. I have already begun writing up the documentation that I plan to include within, like, under docs, like OMR documentation directory, and that'll be a part of the initial pull request to contributing LLJB.
Okay.
I guess one question, just for the record, which license are you using for this code? What license are you contributing this code under?
Currently in, sorry?
Apache 2.0 and Eclipse EPL v2. Just wanted to get that stated.
Yes.
So it should be fairly compatible. Yeah, we'll also
You're
have
the
to.
sole contributor at this point? Nobody else has contributed any
No.
requests?
No, it was just me entirely.
Because the current license is just Apache, right?
Yeah,
So,
the current license is just Apache.
okay, but if it's only you, then you can choose to contribute it under a different license, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So keep that in mind. Don't let anyone else contribute unless they will also agree to. Maybe you should update the license before you let anybody else contribute to it. That's
Sure.
something you could. That'll just make it easier to integrate
Okay.
at that point.
In case I haven't mentioned already, the initial pull request will require a CQ. So it's going to be a large contribution. So
more than one, I think. Two. You'll have to have a works with LLVM, CQ, and the actual contribution itself.
I see.
But
So
that's not something you do. That's something we do.
Yeah.
So given that OMR checker already does use the LLVM libraries, would another CQ be required?
We probably should already have that CQ. But we
Okay.
don't. Yeah, we should close.
Yes. Okay.
Although, now I think about it. So the difference is that the checker isn't part of the release in a sense, right? Whereas this would make the LLVM integration part of in principle, part of a release, right?
Okay.
And that changes the equation from an IP standpoint.
Okay.
So I don't think we need it right now, but if we're going to bring LLJB into JIT Builder as an interface that we expect people to use, then I think we need to have a CQ for it at that point. Because release 0.2.0 may actually have this in it. He said optimistically, not having yet even gotten to 0.1.0. Thinking ahead.
Visionary.
Yes, I know.
Okay. Okay, so I guess one of the next steps here is a pull request that has the files in the shape that that we agreed that they would be in.
Okay.
I think that you also mentioned that you were going to create some issues for some of the known problems that we had discussed outside of this meeting, and I guess things that you need to do, like Barg support, stuff like that.
Yeah. So I'll be creating some sort of a roadmap by opening issues in the current LLJB repository. And hopefully they will all be done by the time I make the contribution.
Okay, but at some point, I mean, if this does get accepted in the next couple of months, 2-3 months kind of thing,
those issues should really live in the OMR repo rather than the LLJB repo.
Yes.
Are there other issues that live in the LLJB repo that should migrate to OMR?
No, there are no other issues.
Are you intending to change the namespacing for the code that's there right now? I was just trying to think about this a little bit further. So the current JIT Builder implementation code all lives in like compiler ILGen as opposed to underneath JIT Builder. And so I guess like right now it's in something like LLJB : compiler or something like that.
Yeah. So.
Or LLJB is the namespace, I guess, that is all.
Yeah, LLJB is the namespace that I'm using. Is there a problem with introducing that new namespace?
Well, I guess I'm just wondering if I don't know. I'm asking the question because I don't have a good
Maybe you should see the code.
Feeling on where it should go at this point.
Yeah, we should see the code and the pull request, and we can.
I mean, I don't think it makes sense for it to go into compiler ILGen because that's. I mean, while it is an IL generator, and that's where all the other, like that's where method builder is, that's where thunk builder is, etc.
Okay. Well, I don't
know if I want to put LLVM into a compiler, one of our OMR compiler directories, maybe. I don't know. I asked the question because I don't have a good gut feeling there, so let me think about that a bit more. Does anyone else have thoughts on that? Like if it's going to be in the JIT Builder project, most of the stuff that's in the JIT Builder project has a OMR : JIT Builder namespace. I'm not sure I want to create another sub namespace in there. And it would be a little bit weird for it to have an independent namespace in there. So
the thing is, there are a few classes that will cause conflict within, like, you know, if we use JIT Builder namespace, there's going to be some naming conflicts for the current classes, which is why I was thinking of having another namespace for the classes in LLJB. And yeah, so I think this is something we can discuss once I open the PR, and you know, everyone can take a look at how this is going to be.
You're just using the JIT Builder API. You're not extending it. Like you're not. Are you?
No, I'm not.
Like using the extensible class. Okay. So you build the JIT Builder and then.
Anyway, it's just feeding into
it.
Okay. Well, so the downside of that approach that you described is that we may ask. It's possible that we'll ask you to make substantial changes to how the code is organized if you show us something and we end up not liking it, as opposed to discussing it up front. I'm okay with it as long as you understand that. It doesn't seem like it would be like dramatic refactorings would be required anyway, so maybe it's not too painful to do it that way. I'll try and think about it a little bit and see if I have a notion for how that should work. And everyone else's input is welcome too.
Okay. Okay. Are there other issues that people want to discuss before Nazim makes his pull request?
I think there will be some things that come up when we see the code in the shape that we expect it. So, but I think for now we're okay with you proceeding with a pull request.
Interesting that there's some OS specific code in here. But, excuse me.
In what way? There's an ifdef Linux and
Found if defined OS X or find Linux.
Oh yeah, that's I was using some Unix header files for some time, I think.
Use sleep is the one that's specifically covered.
Yeah. Okay.
It is under an if statement that's commented with temporary hack to call standard lib functions.
Those should be port library.
Yeah, we might want to find a better way to do that. Well, I think they are. Well, they're. Yes. I mean, they're calls to specific C library function. It's just mapping the name to the address of a particular standard library function. But we actually need to find a better way to provide those mappings.
Yeah, that's part of the future work.
Yep.
Okay. Any more comments for today for Nazim on this?
Just that I think this would be a really cool addition to the project. So
yeah.
Thanks for offering to contribute it.
Yeah, thank you, Nazim.
Yeah, glad to hear that, and thank you for coming to this meeting really early. I know the timing doesn't work really well. Anyway, thanks for listening and for all the useful feedback today. Unless there's any comments, that's all from me.
Okay. No pressure at all. Just curious what the timing would be like for a pull request. Is this like by end of the month kind of thing, or?
Oh no, I was thinking end of by the beginning of December, simply because I want to. There's a lot of things I have planned for LLJB, and before it gets contributed, I want it to be closer to that state, and so that once it goes into OMR, it doesn't have to have frequent pull requests just to add a few features to it.
Okay, fair enough. Cool. All right. Okay. I guess that's all we had to talk about for today. So I guess we'll adjourn and meet again in a couple of weeks. Okay. Thanks for calling in, Nazim.
No worries.
Thanks, everyone.